And welcome KCIW listeners at 100.7 FM or online at kciw.org, Brookings, Oregon. Hi to our syndicated listeners at KZZH 96.7 FM, Access Humboldt, Eureka, California. And our special welcome to our new listeners, KSKQ 89.5 FM, Ashland, and 94.1 FM, Medford, Oregon. This is Joyously Free Radio with me, Joanie Lindenmeyer, the best-selling author of None Better, an amazing love story, and co-author of Joyously Free and Healing Religious Hurts. I'm so glad that you are tuning in today. I'm a resident of Harbor, Oregon, a retired high school teacher, a recent author who has published 3 books in 2 years, created an audiobook, and with friend and film producer Michael Gorse, created a short film called Wowzer. Mike and I are so excited that it has been selected and already shown at the LA Indie Shorts Film Festival. Truly a wowzer. But most of all, I love life and love being the producer and host of this high-energy, joyously free radio show, so named by Will and Viv. This show talks about LGBTQ plus stories and tips, along with religion, church, faith, spirituality, and most importantly, joy, the freedom to spread and to be your authentic self. Joyously Free was the name of my second book that I co-authored with Elizabeth Ann Atkins of twosisterswriting.com. In this radio broadcast, as in my everyday life, there will be no hate speech, no hate behaviors, and no bullying. It will be blasted with the 3 C's: courage, confidence, and collaboration. So together, let's sparkle and seek understanding. We begin every day with a daily salutation. I'll say, it's a brand new day, and your response is, it's never been lived before. Let's give it a try. It's a brand new day, and it's never been lived before. Yahoo! I'm glad we started our day off right. We also start every day with a prayer. So let's open our hearts and we ask the divine to shine light on our community and our world. I excitedly believe and hope in the power of the spiritual and that Jesus, God's Spirit, whatever name you put on a higher being, is always with me and always with you. So be not afraid or troubled, saddened or depressed. Joy and peace are an internal expression of love and harmony that is already within us. We only have to reach deep within and let it out. So let's center ourselves. Take a deep breath in with the good and out with any doubt. Again, breathe in through your nose with hope and out from your mouth with fears. Last one, take a big deep breath in with joy and out with worry or despair. In the name of Mother Earth, Creator God, Jesus, Redeemer, and the blowing winds of the Holy Spirit, we say, hi, thank you for this beautiful, beautiful day. The quote I have today came from a funny book of church bulletins. And I'm doing this one because the interview I will be having with Daniel, in just a few minutes, I think is apropos because he is driving in his car. So here's the quote. Honk if you love Jesus. Text while driving if you want to meet Jesus. I laugh so hard with that because isn't that the case? You know, it's so easy for us in our life that we can be honking and blowing and tooting our horns and whatever and saying, hi, Jesus. But at the same time, we've got to make sure that we are safe. That we're surrounded by people that love us, care for us, that we're in situations that keep us safe from harm. And that's what we try to do. That's what we try to do. But we always know that Jesus, God, Spirit, whatever name you put on it, is always there to help and protect us. So, Lord, thank you for giving me those wisdoms today. Maybe you can lift up my friends and my family and all of our friends and family, helping us to heal, provide us guidance, and most of all, just pour on the love to us. Yes, thank you very much, Jesus. So let's move on. We have a special guest today, and he's been a friend of mine for a long time. He is what I call the interior designer guru of the world. Oh my gosh. Our topic is going to be a blessed gay man. Let me introduce you, everybody, to Daniel Perry. Hi, Dan.
Hey, Joanie, good morning. I think you oversold me. Of the world, I don't think so.
To me, you are. To me, you are. You've helped decorate my house many a time and just my life in general. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I am driving, like you said. I'm just outside of Moab, Utah. on my way to my home in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Fantastic. Okay, so you drive safe today. Okay, we don't want you to meet Jesus and head up to heaven yet. There's too many things that you need to accomplish, I think.
We have too many adventures ahead of us, so that's not today.
Right on, right on. God willing, God willing. Yes, for sure, for sure. Well, Dan, my friends on radio here don't really know you. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and when you actually determined and figured out and came out to yourself as a gay man?
Oh boy, such a story.
Yes, yes.
How do I condense that? Um, you know, uh, Born and raised in Santa Cruz, California. I'm the child of surfer kids. I think they were 17 or 18 when they figured out that I was on the way, and grew up with a very Spanish Catholic family. My grandparents are Mary and Joseph, and so I didn't have a choice. I'm Daniel Joseph John, and I don't know if I ever put a label on it, but I grew up in a family with gay cousins that didn't have labels either. We were all trying to figure things out. So I would imagine, oh gosh, maybe around sixth grade or so, around 12, I started to have an idea of what was going on, but didn't really put a label on it until probably after high school. So I think I took from maybe age 12 to age 17. I graduated early to kind of figure out what was going on with me, and still wound up marrying a woman before I had a relationship with a man. So, I think with everybody, at least with me, it was a journey, and it probably took a good 10 or 15 years to kind of work through that process.
Right, right. Oh my, you said you were married to a woman. And so do you think that was society pressure? Do you think that was just part of your sexual identity? Where was that coming from?
Yeah, I think they call it, is it the Kinsey scale?
Mm-hmm.
And, very few people are 100% straight. Very few people are 100% gay. Everybody's kind of on the scale. But at the time, I didn't have those resources like we have now with the internet. And, our library didn't have those books that helped me figure out who I was. And so I thought you always had to be all of something or all of something else. You had to be completely gay or completely straight, or you had to be completely religious or completely not. I never knew there was the in-between on any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for me, kind of figuring out, oh, I can be in a relationship with a woman, and it was fine, and we actually had a good relationship, but where was I going to weight things? And for me, I would say, maybe it was like an 80-20 or 75-25, and I had to be able to come to terms with myself,
Mm-hmm.
and that took a little while to figure out that was okay. Yet I
Yeah.
didn't have to be 100% something or 100% something else, or I was broken or wrong.
Right. Oh, exactly. And when you figure that out for your true authenticity, then it just feels right. That's a joyously free moment, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, you were there for it.
I know.
When I met my first partner, and and literally, the doors opened. I had a better understanding of who I was and what I needed in my life. And as soon as I had that understanding, and I was able to open up those doors and windows, the person that I needed to come in came in for the next 10 years, and it was amazing. It was everything I wanted it to be.
Yes, yes. And take us back to that time how you met myself and my honey Carol. I think this is a great story.
Yeah, absolutely. I was working at a design center in Southern Oregon, and you and Carol came in shopping. I had just started there. I don't know if it was my first day or my first week, but it was definitely the very beginning of my design career. And I remember that you came in specifically looking for a leather sofa, that you were looking for an Italian leather sofa, and then you threw in the zinger, which is you wanted it to be purple.
Yes.
And I knew that was going to be both expensive and difficult to find, and that we better get you committed to it, because I didn't know who else we were going to resell that purple sofa to. And luckily, purple didn't exist, but eggplant existed, and we found that purple or eggplant in the Tootsie sofa. And I remember the owner of the store insisted that you paid 100% because he wasn't going to get stuck with it. And we hit it off right then. I think I was 26 or 27 years old, so quite a few years ago. And you and Carol invited me for dinner, to bring dinner over. And I, was recently out of college and not making a whole lot of money. So a free dinner sounded awesome compared to eating cereal and ramen. and plus I was clicking with you, even though I didn't know either one of you, and it wasn't until you came over for dinner we started sharing our stories that I I knew you would always be in my life, and you always have been.
You bet, you bet. And that dinner, what were some of the stories that we shared that helped you?
One of the things, and I've mentioned this to you a bunch of times, but not to everybody listening, is one of my very favorite things about Carol was Carol's ability to be kind and direct. And she did it with me over and over again. I'd start to spin a story or a yarn or a tall tale, and she would just lock it right in, boom, 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 but in a very kind way. And so, one of my things I was really dealing with or struggling with was I knew I wasn't particularly a religious person, but I was definitely a very spiritual person. And I had been told over and over again in different gay community meetings and groups I tried to join that you had to be one or the other. You were either gay or you were spiritual/religious, but you couldn't be both. And I didn't know how to make that okay in my head because that's the family I grew up with. I had extremely positive experiences, both in my church and with my family. Both in religion and spiritual. And I knew for me that it wasn't a religious thing, it was a spiritual thing, but I had to come to those terms of combining those things of being spiritual and also being gay. And literally Carol said, well, why can't you?
Mm-hmm,
And I thought, well, all my excuses were gone in one sentence.
right.
Well, why are you listening to everybody else? Why if you are spiritual and you are gay, why can't you be both? And it is literally that simple. And my whole life changed in that dinner, and has changed ever since then. And I've reflected back that and reflected with others on that and used that same way of thinking with other people when they say things like that. Well, why can't you be? And it's amazing when you think, oh, I don't have to listen to everybody else. I can make this decision. And I didn't come from a world where I made those decisions. I relied on others and family and friends to have their input and make decisions for me.
Mm-hmm.
Never maybe feeling smart enough or informed enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I always relied on others and then based my decisions on their information. And it really started putting me on a path of thinking for myself.
Yes. Yes. And that self-talk, that self-esteem that grew from that, and I've been a witness of watching you for the last 30 years that I've known you, how you've grown spiritually, religiously, gaily, all of the above, and let's go back to some of your other relationships you've had and things that you've accomplished as a gay man and as a designer, professionally and personally. Can you jump into some of those?
You bet. One of the things I always like to tell everybody is that they say, so you've had a long-term relationship. And I said, oh yeah, I've been in a relationship for 30 years. Well, with 3 different people.
I love it. I love it.
So, I had a 10-year and basically a 10-year. And, I call it the love of my youth, the kind of the love of my career in those growing years when you're in your 30. And then the love of adventure and thinking outside of the box and having somebody in the best way test your limits. And I learned something about who I am and myself in each one of those relationships. So some people would look at that and say, oh, that's 3 failed relationships. And I'm like, not at all. They were 3 wonderful relationships that I learned so much from, and I hope they learned too. And I learned about myself, and I'm a much better human being for having all 3 of those relationships. I wouldn't be me without them.
Absolutely. And I knew all 3 of them or know all 3 of them.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes. And the growing in all of your friends related to that, your family, because a lot of times we like to put people in a box and say, oh my gosh, Dan really blew it. He got married, then he got divorced, then he got married, then he got divorced, and then he got married. And Carol and I actually got to give you away at the last one, which was even more cool.
Did.
Oh my gosh, that was so special. But that journey, it's a journey. It's a journey. Now, professionally, let's talk a little bit about your design work.
Absolutely. So, again, that's kind of listening to yourself and listening to others. So, when I was in school, I wanted to be an archaeologist, and I was literally on a plane flight yesterday talking to a firefighter that was next to me. And She said, well, I'm a firefighter, but I wanted to be an archaeologist. And I'm like, well, I'm a designer, but I wanted to be an archaeologist. And so we started having that conversation where we actually listened to, our person in high school and college who said, no, you don't want to be this. You should be doing this. And in my circumstance, I was pushed into the tech world when the tech world was really kind of first kicking into gear. And, that's what my degree was in. The first 9 years of my career were in that. And I hated every moment of it. I watched the clock and I looked for any excuse, including working at that design store, to do something else that was creative, because what I was doing was non-creative and soulless and completely unenjoyable. And as I started to figure out who I was, and I then was working for a company that offered to pay for additional education, I went back to school and got my design degree. And compared to my 4-year degree, my 2-year degree was a breeze. I didn't even feel like I was studying. I was in my element, doing what I was supposed to do. I was number one in my class. And it was so much fun. I was the first person to get to class and the last person to leave. And what a difference when you know what you're supposed to be doing and then you follow that path. And then coming out of that, which was in 2002, I've never looked back. Everything about my career has been so fun and so exciting, and a life unto its own.
Absolutely. Oh my God. And you say in your element, that's something, listeners, that we can all pay attention to follow what's in your heart, to really find what it is that's in your element. What are you all about? What's your purpose? And oftentimes it's a calling to me. It's a calling, really, really listening. And that's what you have done all through your life, Dan. And I'm so proud of you for doing that.
I'm so much better at listening now, whether it's listening to those that are closest to me. And, I have, as you know, I have just a very small core of family and friends that I hold close, you being one of those people.
Mm-hmm.
And then listening to myself and, listening to Carol, because she still talks to me and listening to others in my life that have been very close to me that are no longer on this planet, but they're out there. And I'm telling you, I have to be careful sometimes, because I think they're there and waiting to help out on things. And I'm like, no, I don't need this. I'm just putting it out there. But, I'm I've always been afraid to ask to win the lottery, because I think I would. And I'm like, but I mean, no. You do enough for me already. Those that are protecting and covering me. I don't say, plus if I did it, I would just give it back to, youth in crisis and animals anyway. So.
Right. And you are so giving. You are so giving. In this connection with the divinity, I think we all need to realize every single day that we are spiritual beings. We're not just human beings. We are spiritual beings. And we can tap into that connection, that energy, that joy that is all love. And if you really take that to heart, no hate, no fear. Just keep following the divine calling, So speaking of that, you led me to making a book called None Better. And that happened because of a friend named Catherine Greenspan. Can you talk a little bit about that, please? And then the None Better book.
So I have become connected in Southern Oregon through a program that the Chamber of Commerce puts on to Catherine, and then a little bit later to her sister Elizabeth, and just adored them both. One's a year older than me and one's a year younger than me. So I always feel I'm the brother that they never had in between. and we clicked. We clicked on spirituality. We clicked on humor. We clicked on food. We just clicked. It was easy. It's like we had known each other. But then the big click for me is when their mother came and visited, and I found out that they had published her book. And it was such, it's a small book. It's not particularly big in number of pages, but it was hugely impactful. And I've mentioned this before. It's one of the few books that I've read. I think I've read it. I'm on my 4th read on it now.
Wow.
And that's unusual for me to read it, but I keep getting things out of it every time. And when I read it, immediately you came to mind, because I thought, there's all these stories you have inside of you. And I knew you were dealing with grief at the time. And I thought maybe what a wonderful way to move through that grief would be to reflect back on these stories and then start documenting them while they were kind of fresh and maybe even kind of raw at the same time too, so that they had the power behind them that they needed.
Yes, yes. And with all that, that led listeners, that led to my best-selling book called None Better: An Amazing Love Story, which we'll be celebrating March 19th of next month as a 3-year anniversary. We're going to have a get-together at the Wild River Pizza here in Brookings, and then we'll also be doing a Zoom celebration of that 3-year thing. But I think what I want to go back to, Dan, is reading books. And you've always been an avid reader. You always have an open mind. Would you comment about that for listeners related to who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, for me anyway, there's two different types of books, and everybody's different, just like in relationships or anything else in your life. For me, books are relationships, and I have two. One is an escape, and that's reading, something that's fiction that takes me to another land or another world or fantasy or, what if books, what if, being gay wasn't a negative sometimes. What if being a different color wasn't a negative sometimes? So I love those what if books and those types of fiction books. And then the other books I like, which I read a lot of, are biographies. I love biographies of people that you think you maybe know in media, and then you start reading about their lives and you find out you don't really know about them at all. And I also love reading, now that I'm in my 50s, reading about people that have become successful in their 50s and what they've done. And so when you read about the Lucille Balls and the Georgia O'Keeffes, and, I live in New Mexico now. Georgia O'Keeffe is known for all of her wonderful artwork and everything that she did in Santa Fe. She didn't move to Santa Fe until she was 50. And no one knows about her life in Texas. I mean, they do, but no one talks about her life in Texas and New York. And what most people think about is her life from her 50s to her 70s. And I think, how exciting is that? How exciting is that, we get to not necessarily reinvent ourselves, but we get to look at ourselves in different lights.
Yes.
And it's an exciting time right now. I used to be so, not fearful, but concerned about what life was going to be at 50 plus. And now it's about new adventures and artistic endeavors and giving back more than ever, and getting to be a little crazy too. I think it's okay once you get into your 50s and past to, be outside the norm, and people are like, whatever.
Right. And I guess that brings up a simple question. As a gay man, did you ever live in that fear and that doubt within a community?
Yes and no. When I first started my first career in tech, I was in Southern Oregon, and it was very different than growing up in Santa Cruz and Monterey. And I definitely was more reserved, I think, in mostly how I dressed. I made sure I was dressed very conservatively. I didn't wear bracelets. I didn't wear anything that I thought might, give away, because I was serving some pretty rural areas. And what I've learned over the years is, yes, things could happen. Yes, things do happen, but I don't care anymore. And I've noticed now that I don't care. That I've now worked in. I did a project in a pretty rural area of Kentucky last year, and I was just me. And the stories that people told me, and I had the best experience. And I never thought in my life that I would say I had the best experience in rural Kentucky. I had the best experience in rural Kentucky. So I'm learning that people are people, and just as we can sometimes be stereotyped, we sometimes do the same thing in reverse. And by closing off those doors, we don't even open the opportunity for someone to have that discussion about, themselves or their gay son or their gay daughter, and and how they wish they could speak to them. And I had so many amazing conversations from people that were actually older than me that wanted to know how they could better connect with family members that they had, that they felt they had lost because they didn't say the right thing, so they said nothing.
Right. Oh my gosh. Such valuable tips right there, everybody. And you may want to listen to this 1 or 2 or 3 times, because Dan is just packing this thing in. People are people. And I guess I just admire you to the highest heavens, Dan. We're down to just a little bit. Do you have 1 or 2 just quick final comments you'd like to share with our listeners today?
Sure. I think I mentioned before that my grandparents moved here from northern Spain. And one of the things that my grandmother always told me was, it's okay in your life. They moved to the United States for a reason. It's okay to get. get. That's what America's about. We get, and we, somewhat materialistic, and we gather things, and that's what it is. But I want you to remember that there's a time in your life to give. And if you are at an age where you can't give financially, and you can only give by volunteer work or doing something else, then that's how you give back.
Awesome.
But I also want you to realize when you have taken enough in your life, and that giving should be the focus. So that's my goal in my
Awesome.
50s, 60s, and 70s, is to increase the amount that I give. And I would tell anybody, giving is so much more fulfilling than anything else you can do in your life.
Woohoo! I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh, Dan, this has gone by so fast. Okay, here we go. All you beautiful listeners on the gorgeous coast of Southern Oregon and Northern California and the majestic Rogue Valley, thank you for being with us today in a joyously free manner. We hope that you've been inspired or challenged by Dan's stories and tips, hopes, loves, joys, and give. I'm just so excited. If you were here, I'd be giving you high tens and big hugs, Dan, that's for sure. Oh, my heart is just so full. I want to thank you, KCIW 100.7 FM, the team, Tom Bozak, Mike Gorse on the sound today, Candace and Rose for making all this happen. This is aired in KCIW, KZZH, KSKQ. Please share it and re-listen to it. Let's give a shout out to the people that sponsor, my friends that sponsor this show, Steve Van Cleve in Alaska, Todd Roy and Sally Roy for sponsoring it. So we're going to look forward to just great things happening. And you know the ending, how it always goes. And Dan, you've heard this a million times from Carol and myself. Smile big and wear bright colors. Have a great day. Love you and thank you, Dan.